Hi everyone, and welcome to this video tutorial on how to use the SimGrid website to manage your community and to create and edit events and championships for your community. So first of all, to access your host, you're going to use the drop-down menu here in the top right corner and click onto My Hosts, where you'll be greeted with a page like this. To actually view the host page that you've created, you're going to click on the eye, and on here we can view the host page. And it's on here that you'll see all the events of your host in comparison to the home page, where we have all of the events listed by all the different communities who use the SimGrid website. One thing I do advise when you are making a new host page is that you do come onto here and check that all of the external links that you've linked are working, just so you don't have an issue where users are coming and reporting that your links are broken. So definitely recommend that you come in here and check that the links you've supplied are valid and working. I'll go back to My Hosts. If we click on the pencil, on here we now access the admin side of the site, and it's on here that we can start creating and editing events, and also managing all the settings to do with the host. I'll begin here with the Preferences tab on the left. The information that you see in here is the same information that is filled in when you do your original application form. So if you need to change anything in here, such as a description about your community, updating a logo or your chosen banner image, updating the links, or adding other users and making them an admin or a steward, you can do that in here. To add another user as an admin or a steward, simply click the Add User button, type in their Discord username, and then you can mark them as an admin or a steward for your community. As an admin, everybody who's an admin will have the same privileges, meaning that they can create, edit, and delete events, as well as editing these settings and kicking or banning followers. The steward setting, if you wish to use it, is just a lower privileges setting. The only access that a steward has is that they can only edit an existing event. They cannot interact with these settings. They cannot create or delete any events, or they cannot interact with the kick or ban functions from the followers. Purely editing existing events. Talking of the followers setting, if we click on the followers tab here on the left, we'll find a list of all the users who are following your community. From a user's point of view, they first need to follow your community before they are able to register to your events by simply going onto the host page and clicking the big red Follow Community button. Once they've done that, they'll then be eligible to enter the events. The other benefit of the followers system is that when the hosts that they follow announce new events, they'll get a notification up here in the top right, the notification bell. They'll get a notification that new events have been created. The main benefit to you as the host of using this follow feature is, one, you know that when you create a new event, it will notify those users who are following you. But primarily, the big use is that you will then have these options to kick or ban those followers to prevent them racing with you again. So if you do have a user who races with you and is problematic in some way, and you don't want them to be racing in any more of your events in the future, you can simply come on here, search for their Discord username, and then you can apply a kick or a ban. If you do ban somebody and then you want to unban them in future, click on the bans, and any ban drivers will be listed here, and you will simply be able to unban them. We'll come to the Events tab, and it's on here where we can start creating new events or editing our existing ones. To create a new one, simply click the Create New button up here. However, for this demonstration, I'm going to use my test event down here instead. Click the pencil to edit the event. So in this case, we're going to apply the championship name, which in this case is just test. We upload a banner image, and this is the image that will display for the event on the home page, the host page, and also the event page itself. We'll then select the game. In this case, the option is grayed out because I'm editing an event, but if creating a new one, we'll select the game that we're going to use. The games that we support are ACC across PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, Formula 1 2021, and soon Formula 1 2022, when that releases on the PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, as well as also R Factor 2 and iRacing. In this case, this is an ACC event on the PC, so we do also have an option here to choose if this event is with solo drivers or with driver swaps. Driver swaps being where 2 or more drivers are sharing the car, sort of like the real life structure of the GT World Challenge series, for example. This driver swap function is only available to events on ACC on the PC and iRacing. Simply, if you want to use driver swaps, toggle this over to driver swaps and then specify the minimum and maximum drivers that you're allowing per car. If you want a solo driver event, by default this is already toggled towards solo driver, and now everybody will be signing up by themselves. In this next section, we're handling driver signouts and also the reserve setting. So the signouts allowed, this is referring to the number of rounds that a driver or a team can withdraw from in your championship. For example, for running a 5-round championship and we have 5 signouts as shown here, then a driver could withdraw from all 5 races in the championship without incurring any penalty. Depending on how strict or lenient you wish to be with attendance of your drivers, you can change this number however you desire. If you're very strict, you could put this to 0, for example, or if you're running just a one-off event, such as a one-off endurance event, for example, you would put this to 0. If you're quite lenient with attendance and you're running a 10-round championship and you want to allow 10 withdrawals, then you are free to do so. By default, this setting is set to 2. We then have an option here for missed race penalty points and max penalty points. By default, the missed race penalty points is set to 5. What this means is that if a driver is missing a race that they didn't withdraw from, then 5 points will be removed from them in the standings. They'll get 5 penalty points. By default, the max penalty points is 10, meaning therefore if a driver misses 2 races and they didn't withdraw from those races, then they will actually hit 10 penalty points and will therefore be disqualified and removed from the championship. Again, how you wish to use these settings is entirely up to you. You can allow for more max penalty points, or if you don't want to use the missed race penalty points, which some communities don't wish to use, just set this value to 0, and then nobody will ever incur any missed race penalty points. We also have a setting here for max reserves allowed. This is a very useful setting when you're running one-off events. What this setting does is it is where you specify the extra capacity, so the extra number of slots available for registration. For example, let's say 10. And what this means is the website, when you have a full grid, will allow a further 10 registrations to the event. If then a user who is registered to the event and marked as entered, meaning that they have a space on the grid, if they were to cancel their registration, then the website will automatically add the first reserve in to replace them. It is useful for one-off events, mostly because on a one-off event you'll set your max signouts to 0, meaning therefore if a driver or a team cannot participate, they will cancel their registration, and so therefore the website can add that reserve in to replace them. However, for a championship, it's not very common that the registration is deleted, which therefore means the reserve is not going to automatically be added in to replace them. So for championships, I would recommend you leave the max reserves allowed setting as blank, as it is by default. But for one-off events, feel free to use this setting. It is very useful in those cases. If you wish to have entry fees on your event, then you can tick entry fee required, specify the entry fee amount, and then provide a payment link where your drivers need to go in order to pay to enter the series. For example, this could be a link to PayPal as per the example here. If you do use entry fees, then you will also be able to tick these various championship features. And what this will do is it will trigger just a little visual element on the home page to demonstrate that those features are available in your series. On the general championship settings, we can enable the registrations. There's an allow registrations after deadline, and that simply will just force the registrations to remain open even when the championship or the event's ongoing. You can mark it as private, which will generate a code which goes at the end of the URL. As the host admin, you're then required to copy this URL and then distribute this URL to the individuals that you wish to have access to register to this event. If a user does not have this URL, they cannot even access the page to read about the event, nor can they register to it. So if you're looking to grow your community on SimGrid, Private Championship will not aid you in this because the link will be restricted to only those who you're providing that link to. However, if you do have some form of priority signups, for example, such as maybe you have some Patreon members and you wish to distribute this code to them and give them some extra priority to sign up before making the event public, then feel free to tick this as a private championship. And then whenever you're ready to open the event up to the public, you'll be able to come in here and untick this, and then it will become a public event instead. The followers only setting is enabled by default, and that's the setting that we discussed before. I highly recommend that you will leave this followers only setting enabled. There is very little to be gained by turning this setting off. If you're running your events on ACC on the PC or iRacing or rFactor 2, then you'll be using result files to generate the results and the standings. So you don't need to worry about manual result settings if you're running on those sims. So it's ACC on the PC, iRacing, and rFactor 2. Because you're using result files, you don't need to worry about this manual result settings section. However, if you are running your events on anything else, such as Formula 1, ACC on the console, for example, then these manual result settings must be set as appropriate. We have the manual result reviewer and required vote settings. We've set these to their optimal settings and recommend that you leave them as they are. What these settings are referring to is that the manual result reviewer is set to competitor, meaning that the drivers of your championship will be able to view the results that you've input as well as the screenshot that you've used to input that result data. And then they'll be able to vote to accept the result to specify that the result that has been input is correct. As I say, we've put these settings to their optimal setting. You can change them if you wish, but we recommend that you leave them as they are. The most important setting that you must select, though, is this multi-split setting. If you are running just a single grid of cars, then you must untick multi-split. If you are running more than one grid of cars, with tiers, divisions, splits, however you refer to them as, if you're running more than one server of cars, shall we say, then this multi-split option must be enabled. This setting is very, very important and must be ticked or unticked as appropriate. The last setting we have on this first page is the hide championship page. And when you're first going through the flow of creating a new event, definitely tick this hide championship box, as this will make the event invisible, won't send out any notification to your host followers or anything. It will allow you to continue the rest of the flow that we have to go through to create the event. And then once you're ready to make the event visible to users on the site and send that notification out automatically to your followers, you'll be able to come on here and untick hide championship and click update. But when creating it for the first time, definitely click have this ticked, and then this button will say create championship. So we'll move on to the next page then, which is details and rules. And these are simply two text editors where you supply the championship details and your own rule set if you wish. The championship details, this is all the information that you need your drivers to read. So any information that you feel is essential for your drivers to know before signing up to your series, or quick information that you need them to refer to at any point, put this in your championship details box. This could be such as an overview to try and advertise the event if you like, information about entry fees and prize pools if they're applicable, how to register, timetable, stewarding if you have it, any information that you want your drivers and users to know about, put that here in the championship details box. If you use your own rule set, which I imagine most communities will, then you're also able to paste your rule set into this box and click on preview event. You can see the page as the drivers would see it here. So you can see this is all the details, and if you do include a rule set, going on the rules tab, they'll then see your rule set. Cars and classes is the next page. Now in this example championship, we have a multi-class situation set up. So we have 20 GT3s and 20 GT4s. If we wanted to do a multi-split setup, for example, and have two splits of GT3s, we could just change this to GT3, and then we could call this, for example, split 1 and split 2. To choose what cars we're using for this, we simply click the car icon. We can toggle all of the cars on and off, meaning that they are available for selection or not, or we can also just tick the individual cars if we wish to only specify that certain ones are available for use. Same option here, toggle all of them on and off, or again, just tick the individual boxes. We also have a setting here on the website for deadline for changing cars. This is a setting that is especially useful for ACC on the PC due to the entry list file that will control what car the users can join the server with, meaning that you can use that entry list file to enforce that the driver joins the server in the same car that they have registered to here on SimGrid. On other sims and games that don't use entry fees, of course, that's not something that you can enforce, but this deadline for changing cars may still be useful in the sense that you'll be able to see what car someone has registered to on SimGrid and then notice if they join in something different in-game. By default, no deadline is specified, so it's up to you to specify this deadline. And all this is choosing the date and the time in which the website is to block drivers from being able to change what car they're registered to. For example, if I was to choose today's deadline as 1600 BST, click update, then that means that 1600 BST or 1500 GMT, any user who is registered to this event will no longer be able to change what car they're registered to. It will be locked. If they try to change, if they were to go on to their manage registration page and try and change the car, the option would be grayed out. Just like this box is up here, they would have no possibility to interact or change the car. If at any point you want to change this deadline or remove it, you can change it just by clicking in it and specifying a new date and time, or you can remove it entirely by clicking the X. Our next page is race list, and this is where we're going to build the calendar for your championship. In this case, we have an 8-round championship If we wanted to add a new race, we can apply a new name. If we wish, this is an optional field. Choose which track we wish to race at. Let's choose Kyalami. Choose the date and the time. Just choose a random date and time here. And then click Add Race to add it to our calendar. In this case, now we have a 9-round championship, and we also have a setting for 3 drop rounds. What the drop rounds mean is that in this case, with 3 drop rounds, the drivers who are registered to this championship will be scored based on their best 6 of 9 results. So their worst 3 results will not count for points in the standings. The drop rounds is disabled by default by being set to 0, which would mean that drivers are scored based on all 9 rounds. So if you wish to use drop rounds, just simply interact with this down here and choose the number of drop rounds that you wish to have available. You may notice that on this 9th round at Barcelona, we have a green box over here in comparison to the other events. And the reason for that is because we've set up an individual race scoring table for this 9th round. So if we come to scoring here on the left, it's on here where we can specify the scoring system for the championship, which in this case we have the standard Formula 1 system of 25 points for a winner through to 1 point for 10th place. But coming back to the race list, on this 9th round at Barcelona, we've set an individual scoring system using the double points option here, which means that winning this race would instead yield the winner 50 points, and coming 10th would yield 2 points compared to 1 as it is in all the other rounds. You can use double points. You could also change this to half points. You could use up the autofill options if you wish, or you could clear and set these manually, or if we just clear this entirely and click save, it will now revert back to the standard championship scoring instead. Another thing with the scoring, coming back to the scoring tab, is we have a new feature of manufacturer scoring and team scoring. So with manufacturer scoring, when a driver signs up and chooses their car, the car will automatically be assigned to the manufacturer that they represent. And if you enable manufacturer scoring, when viewing the standings, you'll be able to see the driver standings as well as then the manufacturer standings. Using this drop-down box, we can specify the amount of participants that will count towards the manufacturer points. So in a situation where in a scenario where you might have an uneven number of drivers representing different manufacturers, you may wish to limit this to 1, for example. If you had a situation where you have 1 Ferrari and 10 Mercedes, it would be very unbalanced. So if you wish to limit the number of participants that will be actually scoring points towards the manufacturer points, then you can use that option here on the drop down, or you can set it to all. Same situation for the team scoring, you can limit this as well. Main difference with the enable team scoring setting is that when a driver signing up to the event, they will be able to select which team they wish to represent, if at all. It's an optional setting for the driver if they wish to represent a team or not when they register. We can also set in here the fastest lap bonus point. So this is the number of extra points that will be awarded to the driver who sets the fastest lap of the race. By default, it's set to 0, but you could put this value whatever you like. If you set this to 1, for example, then whoever has the fastest lap of the race will be awarded a bonus point of bonus 1 point. The main thing to note with this setting, for those of you who are doing manual results, is that you should only enable this setting. You should only use this setting if 1, the game you are using will supply you with the data of the fastest laps of the race, and then 2, most crucially, that you will actually input this data. If you specify a bonus point of 1, for example, for the fastest lap of the race, and you are doing manual results and you don't input any best lap data because you don't want to, you don't have to, or the game doesn't supply you that data, then what the website will do is actually give everybody a bonus point because everybody will have a lap time of 0. So if you're using manual results, then please only specify points if you're actually going to input that data for all the drivers. If you don't have that data or you're not going to input it, please leave the bonus points at 0. We'll come back to our race list and we'll go to our new race that we added, which was Kyalami. I'll click on the pencil, and on here we can now edit some of the details of the race, and also we can set up our results as well. So lobby name is where we'll supply the server name, password, where you supply your server password. If you're broadcasting your races anywhere on Twitch or YouTube, for example, you can put a link to the URL here so that people can easily find your stream. You can add some session details if you want to. These are optional. If you wish to include them, you can. Click Add Session Details, and you can specify here the real-world time of the sessions, the in-game server time, if it's applicable, the duration, and expected weather and temperature. Come back to the page we're on, and come further down, and we now have the Import Results section where we can now handle our result procedure. So if you have result files, so that's those of you on ACC on the PC, rFactor 2 and iRacing, you simply upload the results by saving the files locally on your PC. To upload your qualifying result, for example, click Choose File, select that qualifying JSON on ACC, for example, and then click Upload, and repeat the same procedure for the race. For those of you who don't have result files, we have to do these results manually. So I'm going to do a manual result for the race. So I'm going to click on Manual. On this page, we'll then have a list of all the drivers who are registered to the championship. In this case, we have 3 drivers who are registered. The name that displays in this case is actually the Discord username, but please note that for those of you using PlayStation or Xbox, for example, you would see the Xbox username or PlayStation username, and if something like Formula 1 on the PC, you'll see the Steam username, so that the names that you're viewing here will be matching what you're seeing on your in-game screenshots. So using that in-game screenshot, we know which positions we need to place into the drivers. So using the green box, we can drag and drop the drivers so that they are finished in the correct position, matching your screenshot. We're then going to input the number of laps that each driver has done. So for example, we'll just say 3 laps for each of the drivers. If we have the best lap data and we wish to input it, then on the best lap column, we can enter the best lap time from each driver. We don't need to format the times. The website will do the formatting for us. We simply just need to input in the numbers. So let's say the best lap time for Josh Martin was 1 minute 19 seconds 0.5. We'll simply write it like this. And when I click off the box, the website will format the numbers for me. I'll input some random time for the other 2 drivers as well. And now we come on to doing the total time. Now, any game should tell you the total time for the winner. So we can enter this. Again, we don't need to format it. We just write the numbers and the website will do the formatting for us. So we'll say 15 minutes, 30 seconds, 0.567. Something random. Click off and the website will do the format. Now, we don't know the total time for the other drivers. The only information that we have on the game is the gap. So where it says total time, we're going to click this and it will toggle to the gap. And now we enter the gap to the leader for each of the remaining drivers. So for the driver in second place, if their gap to the leader was 3.5 seconds, we will write 3.5. And now we have a gap of 3.5 seconds. If the third place driver was 8 seconds behind the leader, we'll write 8 point something. There we go. And now they're 8.7 seconds behind the leader. If a driver was a DNF, so they didn't finish the race, you could select them as a DNF. Or if there was a driver who didn't start the race, you could mark them as a DNS. You will need to upload your screenshot, so click Choose File, upload the JPEG image of your result file, and then we're going to click on Save. In this case, I don't have any images to upload, so I do have a prompt up here asking me to add those images. As long as you upload that image, you won't get that prompt. So we can see that the result is here. We can also see it's now created the total time for the drivers in second and third place. If I toggle this back to the gap, we can see that that was the gap information that we input, and it's now created and calculated a total time for those drivers. We'll come back a page where we were before, and if we view the race 1 results, which is what we just input, we can now do the result modifications. So the result modifications down here, this will appear automatically if you're doing result file uploads as well. So down in this section, this is where we can now handle post-race penalties if we need to do so. So, for example, let's say we need to give Josh Martin a 10-second penalty. We know in this case that Josh Martin has won the race and he's finished still 8.7 seconds ahead of third place. So we know that giving Josh Martin a 10-second time penalty is actually going to drop him down into third place. So to give Josh his time penalty, we're going to click on the pencil to edit his result information. We can take away time. Maybe he was given a penalty in the race that we wish to remove, or we can add time to, in this case, give him a penalty. Now we don't have an option for 10 seconds, but you can select these multiple times. So to give 10 seconds, we're just going to click the +5 button twice. And we know that his time that's the 30 seconds, 15 minutes, 30 seconds. So we know that should go up to 40 once we apply this 10-second penalty. So click 5 twice. It's now 40 seconds. That means it's gone up by 10. Click Update. And this result has now updated. And as predicted, Josh has dropped down into third place because of that time penalty. And the points for each of the drivers have been recalculated as well. So now we've done our result, whether it be an upload or a manual entry, we've applied our post-race penalties. The last thing we need to do here is click Publish Results. And this is then going to send a notification to these participating drivers that the latest results have been uploaded and they can come on and check their results. Click Publish Results now. And we can now see that these results have been successfully published. Now, the last thing we need to do as part of our flow of uploading the results is we need to come up to our tab here on the left, and we need to check the standings page. So we click on Standings, and we can see here that we have yellow ticks. If you're doing a brand new result for the first time of the event, so the first round of a championship, for example, you will have no ticks here initially. So in the case that you have no ticks at all, or yellow ticks as we have here, this means that we need to do an update to the standings simply by clicking Update Standings. Now we have green ticks, and this means everything is okay. All this process is just a verification from the website, just to be 100% sure that all the standings are updated and shown correctly when a user comes to visit the standings page. 99.9% of the time, the standings are correct anyway. Okay. Very rarely you might run into an anomaly where it's most commonly presented when you have multiple drivers who have identical points to one another. You may have that the standings are ever so slightly out of order because of that, and this update standings will fix that and always ensure that the standings are verified and up to date. So just a couple more pages to go through on this video tutorial now. So we have the drivers and the entry list page. Very similar information displayed on both of these. The main difference is that on the drivers page, as an admin, we can actually edit any of this information if we need to, or even add a new driver if they're unable to register to the event for some reason. So if we wanted to change what car somebody's registered with, if they're unable to change it themselves for some reason, we can click on Manage, and we can change Josh Martin, we can change him from the BMW and place him in the Ferrari, for example. Update registration, and now we see Josh is in the Ferrari. We can also download the entry list here, which is the JSON file for the events. So this is mostly useful for those of you using ACC on the PC. And you can also download a CSV version of that entry list, which is very useful for creating PDF files for your commentary team, for example. As I mentioned, the entry list page, very similar information on here. The main benefit of this page, though, is if you need to find out the details of somebody. For example, if you're on the PlayStation and you know somebody's PSN username, but you don't know their Discord username, or vice versa, you'll be able to come on here and search for them. And in this case, it's this Team 64 here, but if they were on a PlayStation, this would say their PSN username. And you'll be able to find out that information so you know who to get in touch with. The last page we have is the sponsors page. So if you do ever have any sponsors for your events or championships, simply come on here, click Add New Sponsor, fill in this information here to populate your sponsor, and the sponsor information will then display down here on the bottom right under all the other boxes on the event page itself. So that does conclude this tour of the SimGrid website. I look very much forward to seeing your community coming on board and creating events using the SimGrid platform. And please, at any point, if you do run into any issues or need some support with anything to do with the SimGrid website, then please don't hesitate to contact us on our company Discord server, which you'll be added to. Use the tag @website-support, and then myself and other members of the website support team, including the developers, will be able to assist you with any queries that you have. Thank you.